Just as we used paths for drawing CA shape layers in section 1, we're going to use paths for drawing in core graphics. Let's review how your drawing gets to the screen. You have a UI view which has a backing layer and possibly others in the layer tree. Each layer has a drawing canvas called a context. If you subclass a layer, you can draw into this context. So far, we've been providing the contents of the layer directly, rather than doing our drawing into this context. An easy way to draw directly into a view is to draw directly into the view's context. Remember that all drawing on a view is actually done on the view's backing CA layer. So when we're drawing during this video into the view's context, we're still using a CA layer, but without referencing it directly. When a view is first put on the screen, it automatically calls a method called drawRect. The method is now actually called draw_rect, but historically it was called drawRect. And to avoid confusing the method name with me talking about drawing, I'm going to continue to call it drawRect. The rect is a CG rect that is the same size as the view's bounds, and you can override this method to do your core graphics drawing into the view. You never directly call this method, it's automatically called whenever the view needs redrawing, such as when it first appears. If you need to redraw the view, for example if you're drawing a graph and the values change, you can tell your app that the view needs redrawing by calling the method setNeedsDisplay. This will mark the view for a redrawing on the next screen refresh. This refresh happens 60 times a second, so the drawing is very fast. If you subclass a CA layer, you can override a similar drawing method, but generally if you're drawing into a view, you'd override the draw method in the view. In the demo, we're going to draw a new custom control. Remembering past experiences with caterers, we're going to be making a rating control. But instead of using stars for our rating, we're going to use cupcakes. We'll allocate 1 to 4 cupcakes to each caterer. This caterer gets 2 cupcakes. Breaking down this control, we're going to draw an image using paths. We're going to cover the view with a solid red colour and draw a crosshatch pattern on that solid red. We'll use a clipping mask so that the red only appears in the shape of the cupcake. So let's draw the cupcake.
Open up preview.storyboard and select the rating scene, and option click Rating View to open it in the Assistant Editor. The rating view is an empty view in the middle of the view controller. I've put some commented code right at the bottom of rating view. Ignore it for the moment, we'll use it for drawing in a moment. Just as all the controls in the first section, rating view is IP designable so that we can see it draw in the storyboard as we draw it. Override drawRect, and this method is where you put all your drawing code. We're going to initially draw the cupcake filling the view completely. We're going to have 2 paths so that we can have 2 different colour fills. We'll have the bottom part of the cupcake and the top part of the cupcake. We'll start with the bottom part of the cupcake, so we'll draw a path from halfway down the view and draw a line to the bottom 1/5 of the way across the view. Choose a colour for the stroke and change the line width. Oh, I've done something wrong there. There we go, I missed out the Y. Choose a colour for the stroke and change the line width. We're in UI Kit at the moment, so we don't have to worry about CG colours. Now we'll stroke the path, and it draws in the storyboard. You can see that this is very similar to drawing a path and setting the attributes on CA Shape Layer. The main difference is that you're drawing into a UI view canvas called a context. By doing UI color.setStroke, you're setting the context to have a state of that color. So any strokes you subsequently do in the context will use that stroke color. Let's quickly finish off the straight lines of the cupcake. We'll draw another line to 4/5 of the way across and halfway up on the right hand side. and we'll close the path. This will automatically draw a line back to the starting point. Let's fill this with a cakey colour from the asset catalogue. Open up the media library and drag RW Cupcake Bottom into the code. We can treat this colour literal just like a UI colour. So we can do .setFill and then path.fill. I filled the path after stroking it. Remember that a stroke goes half inside and half outside the shape. The outline is currently showing half the width of the line. All the drawing in DrawRect takes place just like when you actually draw. If you draw a thick line but then paint something over it, that line disappears. So let's move the fill to before the stroke. And you can see the line's now thicker. Now we finished the bottom part of the cupcake.
The final top of the cupcake is going to have quite fancy drawing with curves indicating the luscious frosting dripping off the edge. We're going to use a Bezier curve for this. Bezier curves have points such as the pink dots here and control points, the green dots here. The points are along the path and the control points influence the curve of the path. In the last section, we used a quadratic curve which has 2 points and 1 control point. The control point pulled the line from the 2 points towards it. A Bezier curve has 2 control points and you have complete control how your curves look. To create this curve, you'd move to the first point just as if you were drawing a line. Then you'd add the next point and specify the positions of the 2 control points. Here, these are the green dots between the pink dots. You'd then go on to the next point and then the final point, each time describing 2 control points that control the curve between the 2 points on the path.
We're just going to do a simple curve for the top of the cupcake for the moment. Start off a new path and move to the right-hand starting position. Before we continue, let's set the fill colour so that we can see the drawing. We'll set it to an unhealthy shade of pink. Now we'll add a curve to the top of the cupcake. I've experimented with the control points and the commented code down here is what I came up with. So move this first section up to DrawRect and highlight and uncomment it with Command/. Control point 1 is at about here and control point 2 is at about here. The start point is here and the end point is here. Now we'll do the other side, so move the second drawing code and uncomment it with Command/. And that's a mirror image of the first one. And close the path. And that's our cupcake. You can see that I've got it slightly wrong here, so we'll take it back to 10. And that's fixed it. Let's set the line width to the same as the bottom. And there's our cupcake. You now know all the secrets of drawing paths. You can start off with an outside path such as a circle or rectangle and then add lines and curves and arcs. You can then use the path for a shape layer or draw it directly into the view's context as we did here. You're probably wondering how I managed to work out these curves for the cupcake. In the video following the challenge, I'll show you how I cheated using an app called PaintCode.